Tuesday, February 5th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, Advance Wars, Days of Ruin.
Let's do this.
Well, it's Super Tuesday.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, super because parades.
Well, because the parade was kind of not awesome for me because I get on the train to go home, right? And it's full of drunken college kids in Giants jerseys.
Woo!
The best part is, while they were all rowdy and whatever, for some reason, they seemed really afraid to sit next to people. So they were all sitting on the floor, even though there were plenty of seats. They just had to ask people to move over.
That's how everyone is on the train. Had nothing to do with those people in particular.
Yeah, but I didn't see a single one of those people sitting in a seat because they all got to the train at the last minute and the train was already full of businessmen.
It's they're not so good at
training.
Talking to anyone who's not also wearing a uniform there.
But despite Scott's complete lack of interest in politics and thus no right to complain when things go to hell, I
there
voted
ain't
in
no
the
right to
primary.
complain. I vote. That's it. That's all I can do that matters.
You
And
didn't
it
vote in the
matters-
primary, which matters more than the election this time.
I'm not gonna join a party. I'm doing something. I'm having my say by saying I don't think that we should have a party system at all. So I don't participate, and I'm independent.
I don't know. That's
Are you
kind of
saying
like
I should go against my principles to gain power?
yes,
Oh no.
very much so. Because the principle there is no big deal. Look, I joined the Democratic Party
It's
for like
all
a
about
month.
principle. That's what democracy is about. Everyone follows their principle, and thus, the most popular principle is the one that wins out. If everyone goes against their principle, that's why we're entrenched in the stupid two-party system. We're always voting for the worst of the worst.
No, I don't think that's it. I think that a lot of people who vote don't have any principles to begin with. And
That
they vote
is
based
also the
on-
problem.
I think the primary problem is single-issue voters.
That too.
But anyway,
A lot of problems.
this is my Super Bowl today. Scott had his Super Bowl on Sunday, but tonight is my Super Bowl.
No, I don't think you understand. The Super Bowl, the real one, lasts for 365 days.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
You're not going to be talking about the Super Bowl a month from now.
The Giants will remain world champions until the next Super Bowl. And maybe even then, if they win again, it could be even longer.
But in much more important news, we're going to talk about this a lot more later in the episode, but in the show. But I beat Advance Wars on the train this morning, finally.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
Well, Advance Wars DS2.
Yes.
Nah, you beat Advance Wars 1 finally? Wow, I beat that game a long time ago.
I don't even know where my copy is. Once I got an S in every single mission in the hard campaign and the war room, I just kind of stopped playing that one.
I got mine. I got all my games. I never lose a game except one.
I got them, but they're in a box somewhere.
All right.
But I was kind of disappointed. In one hand, the game was great, and it's much more of a war game. But at the other hand, I was saddened.
Why are you using up the main bit in the opening bit?
That isn't
Why
so
you got to
bad.
do that for?
I was saddened by the fact that, with the exception of one mission, the game was easy to the point of being laughable.
The game is pretty easy. Every mission so far, I mean, I didn't beat it yet just because, lack of playing. I'm on mission 20-something, and every mission so far, except for this one T mission, which I sort of gave up on, but I'll go back to.
Oh, the one that Alex and I both beat in one try?
No, I beat
right
that
away?
one. The one with the bikes and the whatever. Well,
Yeah, that one's easy.
it's a different one. I just haven't really tried it. But any mission I've actually really tried to win, I've beaten pretty handily.
The thing is, that last mission is a fucker, and it took me a bunch of tries, but at the same time, that last mission wasn't even a fifth as difficult as the last mission in the hard campaign of the first two Advance Wars.
No, the first two, well, because I think it's just a different kind of game, and I'm saving all my talking for the real main bit, so we don't waste it all now.
But suffice to say, I beat the game.
Yeah, suffice to say, Rim says suffice to say a lot.
I do.
You gotta stop doing that.
Suffice to say, I also have some news. The news is not related to video games, but this kind of fell off my radar because I pretty much gave up on Dungeons & Dragons right about when 3.5 edition came out.
Yeah, something like that.
Which was coincidentally around the time when I started really learning more and more about Burning Wheel.
Oh, that is a coincidence.
Ha! Funny
Yeah.
that. But the thing was, it's not like I found Burning Wheel and I suddenly hated D&D. It was more that I kind of always hated D&D.
Yeah, I also kind of always
But at the same time,
hated. Well, parts of D&D were great and parts were not so great.
I guess it was just that I was always vaguely dissatisfied with Dungeons and Dragons and most other role-playing systems I played, and I never really was sure why. I'd always think, whatever, I just gloss over it.
I think the most D&D players are always dissatisfied. That's why they're always coming up with house rules and changing things and trying to buy more books to get different rules. And I think it's a game where people really want to play it for certain aspects, but they're constantly dissatisfied with it, and that's why they just keep trying to change it or fix it or do something different, but no one ever thinks, play a different game that has, like Burning Wheel.
Well, I think part of it's the one D&D has such a mind share. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons is the role-playing game. I mean, God, today, we've been playing Burning Wheel for a long time.
The tabletop role-playing game.
We've been playing Burning Wheel for a long time now, relative to how long we played other games.
Couple years.
But at the same time, when we invite everyone over or we talk about our most recent gaming session, we still call it D&D.
Yep.
It's like, we're playing D&D this weekend. We haven't played D&D in a long time.
They haven't played D&D like 3 years.
That's just how much mind share.
Oh, no, wait. Yes, we have, but we haven't, yeah.
Well, there was the online game.
Right.
Yeah, that I was not really in.
No, not so much.
That's fine. That game kind of sucked.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, you admit. Because I remember I got a lot of flack when I complained about that game on a daily basis.
It was okay. It wasn't like a terrible game. It was just,
Yeah, well, I think part of it was that most of the fun of D&D was taken away by playing it in a forum.
Something like that. I'm not big on the forum games. I think the forum games are just sort of like they provide like one fraction of the experience of real tabletop role-playing, but it's, when a man in the desert will go to...
Actually, I think forum role-playing is really great. The problem is, you can't play forum role-playing with D&D rules.
I don't think any sort of rules will work so well.
Well, what you use some of those diceless or really, really simple conflict resolution rules, and you pretty much just take turns kind of taking control of the narrative.
Yeah, but that's not really a tabletop role-playing game. That's more of
it's a role-playing game.
Collaborative storytelling. You could just set up a wiki and write a novel together.
There's there's this long gradient between one end of the role-playing spectrum, which is just playing roles. You just act. It's collective storytelling and nothing more. And on the other end is we're basically iterating through a video game that we have written the rules for and then are playing in the real world with miniatures.
Yep. I think the funness for geeks, at least, is getting both at the same time. And I think, in a forum, it's at least without some sort of, software built into the forum to aid with the game side of things, you really can only do the story kind of things.
But the news here is that Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition isn't out yet, but they've released for $20 each, I hear.
$20? It's the cost of the player's handbook.
Two preview books?
Wait. So it's a a not yet complete player's handbook, as a beta player's handbook, if you will, for the price of a player's handbook.
See, I'm not entirely sure what this is. The review is basically fluff garbage on Slashdot. It doesn't really say anything useful. The comments are a lot more informative. I'd suggest you read those. But now that there's a lot more details about what exactly 4th edition entails, I want to point out a couple of things. One, actually, you know what? I don't need to say anything because I'm looking at Slashdot here, and Mongoose Disciple said better than I could ever say everything I have to say about D&D 4th edition. Quote, "Am I the only one who feels that they may have simplified the most important and interesting parts clear out of the game, filled the gaps liberally with World of Warcraft, and ended up with a game that admittedly has a much lower barrier to entry, but is also not particularly interesting?"
Yeah.
The rule, it seems like, because a lot of people, now, granted, this is a very qualified statement, but I know there are a lot of people who prefer, like, good old Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition to 3rd edition or modern D&D iterations, and there's some truth to that, and there's some kind of fudging to that, but I think the main reason people feel that is that because the system was less evolved and kind of crappy and very vague, people were kind of forced to play it by ear, so as a result, good dungeon masters could run fantastic games. It seems like to deal with the problems of Dungeons & Dragons as they have seen them in 3rd edition and 3.5th edition, they're just making more and more tight video gamey rules, and they're working more and more to balance all the classes as opposed to adding interesting role-playing elements.
Because most people, they wonder, people are always like, well, how do I roleplay? Blah, blah, I just get the feeling that most people... unless you get someone else to bring you in and show you the way, You know, role playing, you don't know from that. Most people, even if they do know from that, they don't want that.
Well, I'm reading these comments, and a lot of people are arguing about, oh, well, the power curve is off, or the balance is off, or now this class is too powerful, or that class is too powerful, or
Exactly. That's what most people are looking for who are into D&D. And that's they like, you know, what it is.
See, I don't think that's it exactly. I think it's just that a lot of people have never played any game but D&D, and I think GURPS is even a much better system. Well, I guess I should
At least
qualify.
number-wise, it's better.
I guess I should qualify that. Dungeons & Dragons is not really a role-playing system. I don't think it ever will be. It's basically now a stateful miniatures combat game that is interspersed periodically with flavor text.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah, but I don't know. I remember when 3rd edition came out, I had a freaking nerdgasm, and I stood in line to buy those books like the night that they came out.
I played 2nd edition in my youth, but I never actually owned the books. I always used someone else's. But
To this day, I own more 2nd edition D&D books than I own any other role-playing books combined.
I knew how the THACOs worked, and when I got to college, I was like, okay, now's the time for some serious D&D. I'm in college. This is where it can happen, all right? And I went, and people had these 3rd edition books, and I was like, what? I didn't know. And I expected to be going to the game store to get 2nd edition books. So nope. 3rd edition it was. So I went out and bought the books. And
I remember taking that book home the first day and being like, attacks of opportunity. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It took me how many years? I still had to learn all the goddamn stupid rules in that book. Wasn't worth it.
I don't think you ever knew the rules to any D&D.
I did. I just never, knew them as much as the game sort of required. I knew the most basic of rules.
You knew
initiative, hit,
you knew
do damage.
I attacked the monster that has the most hit points, that is the biggest threat to me personally.
Yes. Exactly.
That and I roll a search.
Yes. Exactly.
But I don't know, I'm so unexcited about 4th edition. Like I cannot describe to you like how I read a lot about it in the last, 20 minutes today, and nothing in any way interests me. It feels like that guy said, kind of like World of Warcraft.
How could anything excite you if you have tasted the caviar? Why would the can of sardines excite you?
In fact, the more I think about it, they're basically turning D&D into World of Warcraft. Look, they're making the rules so codified, and the thing they're focusing on the most seems to be character advancement and the power curve and the risk-reward curve and the carrots to keep you playing. It's basically World of Warcraft that you play with your friends, and you have to do all the calculations by hand.
They have a World of Warcraft tabletop game.
I know. I was trying not to remember that.
They also have an
fact.
EverQuest tabletop game.
I remember when I found out about that. I remember I was in a bookstore, and I saw it, and I didn't believe it was there. So I went to Pete and said, Pete, look at that, and what is it? And he said, I don't know what you're talking about, because I don't see anything there.
That's what role-playing has become to most people, is, if it's... they call like Final Fantasy a role-playing game. No, it's not. That you don't play any role in Final Fantasy. The role is already played for you. You're just watching a movie interspersed with this, numbers game of, character stats. And that's...
But you can make, in some games, you make really important character decisions. For example, dost thou love me?
But thou must.
All right, so I don't think I'm going to talk about 4th edition again until it comes out fully. Then I'll probably buy, but I put buy in quotes because I think what I'm actually going to do is
PDF.
steal. I mean, I bought the 3rd edition books. I even bought a new 3rd edition book not that long ago.
Me too, sadly.
Why did we do that?
I don't know.
I had PDFs.
I don't know.
But I will acquire 4th edition. I will read it all.
PDFs.
And then I will write my unending diatribe, and then that'll be the end of it.
Yeah. It would take quite a surprise. Basically, we'd have to open up the book and see a pirated copy of Burning Wheel in there. Not...
It's the churning wheel.
The churning wheel. Oh, God.
Seriously, we talk about it a lot, but if you like role-playing, you like to play roles, and you like fantasy, or you like Dune, or you know what? Even if you hate those things, I think Burning Wheel will make you like them. There is no excuse on earth not to buy the core books to Burning Wheel. If you have ever...
2 books for the price of the beta D&D books. You get a whole game.
Pretty much, if you're a role player, a video gamer, or even if you're an actor or anything, Burning Wheel... Actually, yeah, if I was like a teacher in high school and I taught drama, I'd make the kids play Burning Wheel like once a month in class.
I would just have the Class B Burning Wheel.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
Yeah, okay, go get a job doing that. All right.
You know how much I want to have a job being a teacher?
Yeah, your time is done. There we go. Ready?
Okay, so what do you got? What are you gonna top? I got 4th edition D&D. That you know how much of a disappointment that is? Remember when you heard George Lucas is making new Star Wars movies?
Whatever.
Remember how you felt when you heard that?
Not as excited as most other people were. Anyway, one of Rim's favorite games ever, Bionic Commando.
I can beat that game in like 28 minutes.
Doody. Okay, so they're making a new Bionic Commando that's all 3D and whatnot, right?
Wait a minute. Bionic Commando? I believe you mean Hitler no Fukatsu.
Yeah, Hitler no Fukatsu, same game. They're making a new one that's all 3D. But that 3D one, who knows if it'll be good, if it'll be bad, what system it'll be on, I have no idea.
Well,
right?
I think the internet knows.
The internet probably knows. I'm not looking it up.
Well, I mean, I think the internet knows based on what you're thinking or your news is.
Oh, okay. But anyway, in addition to this 3D game, they're also making another Bionic Commando game called Bionic Commando Re-armed. Get it? Re-armed as in re-weaponing, but also because he has a robotic bionic arm, he's re-arming.
If you've never played Bionic Commando for the NES, get yourself a ROM because that is one of those.
Or get yourself the GBA cartridge that also has Contra on it.
Yes.
And Strider. It has 3 games on one cartridge.
But that game is like one of the.
Wait, it is Contra, right? Or is it Super C that's on there?
It's not Contra or Super C.
What game is on there? There's Strider, Bionic Commando, and one other game, right?
I don't know. I only played Bionic Commando. Oh, yeah, like Mighty Final Fight.
Mighty Final Fight, that's the third one.
How
did I confuse that with Contra? What the fuck?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Up, up, down, down, man.
Yeah, anyway. So they're making this Bionic Commando Re-armed, and basically, it's the original Bionic Commando. It's still the same game. It's a 2D game, even though they do sort of like the Smash Brothers thing where, the 3D models, but it's 2D, right? But modern graphics and fixed gameplay. Because as great as Bionic Commando was, the gameplay was not flawless. There were many problems.
Part of that were due to, there was limitations of the NES. Part of it was that, yeah.
Yeah. So they basically, this May...
The boss of the game is basically, up, fuck, game over.
Yeah. The game, and if you watch this video here that we can link to, the guy is both the lead creative, designer of the game and also the composer. And he did nice quality remixes of all the music for the game. And he's also, he's pretty on target with what was wrong with the original game and how to make it better. For example, the original Bionic Commando, you can choose different weapons, right?
I point out that there is in fact only one weapon. It is the bazooka. Every other weapon's
useless, right? So he's gonna, and you can only choose the weapon at the beginning of the level. You couldn't change it until you start a new level. So he's gonna make it so you could change the weapons all the time, and he's gonna make it so you can do more stuff with the arm. And also, all the boss fights in the game are pretty boring. Like basically crouch and shoot, then go up and shoot.
Or when you fight Captain Pip, you just stand behind him. He can't get you. That's the end of that.
You stand behind him and shoot with the bazooka, you win, right?
It takes like one hit, too.
Yeah. So he made all the bosses more interesting, where you're going to use the arm to fight the bosses, and made the environment a little more interactive. But in general, if you watch videos, the game seems to be pretty much intact. And if I had an Xbox, I'd be pretty excited to play this Bionic Commando Re-armed business.
I'm more and more feeling an Xbox. I mean,
the only reason, I gotta be honest, right? One of the reasons I don't have the Xbox is because I feel like without the HD TV, it's useless. Because so many of the games, if you try to play them on standard definition TVs, just don't work. Or you can't read anything on the screen, and it's the system. Even the crappy, arcade games like the Pac-Man are designed for the HD or the widescreen, and we don't have that, and it wouldn't work.
Well, we will when we build the Geek House. But,
yes, when we move, when I move, I'll eventually get the flat screen, hang on the wall HD TV, and an Xbox 360, probably.
Well, by then might be the 720 or whatever.
Whatever, I'll get that, sure, as long as the backwards compatibility's there. And mostly, all I really need is the live business. The live is where it's at.
God, I would pay to just have live on Windows. I even use Windows.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't do that. Why? There's no technological reason, other than they haven't done it yet, that I shouldn't be able to do every Xbox Live arcade thing on a PC. I mean, sure, the Xbox games, that that come out on like a disc, that for putting all
whatever.
those on Windows.
I'm not excited about any of those games.
But why can't the games that you download, like the Uno with the webcam, I could do that with a PC, and why not? Why haven't they done that?
I want to play Uno with a webcam.
They could sell Vista with that, because Vista's cheaper than the Xbox.
Even though I just want to point out, out there, I know a lot of you play that Uno game. Don't pretend that Uno involves skill of any kind.
No, it doesn't. Okay. So yeah, that's what I got here. Check this video out and get excited about Bionic Commandos. Maybe not the 3D one, but 2D remake, good enough.
Things of the day. So check this. I like watching people perform stunts and feats of strength, but sometimes you watch someone doing something dangerous and you can't go, wow, that's amazing, because you feel that sense of, one, if I were there, I would probably pee myself, and two, you palpably feel like they're about to die at any second. This is one of those videos. Basically, these dudes climbed onto this crane that's like at the top of a skyscraper that's being built or something crazy like that.
All right.
And they don't have any safety equipment. They're just kind of hanging on to this thing like they got themselves out there, and they're looking around like,
well, a
hey.
crane usually has like an elevator in it, right? So they took the elevator up to the little control box.
And then they walked out and onto the crane, out.
The part that goes, hanging over with the, okay.
Yep. And,
but I mean, you could be on top of it crawling,
Yeah, but that's not the exciting part. I mean, that's scary enough. I mean, I do get a little bit of vertigo if I, look over a very sheer cliff or something.
I do too. I get the vertigo, even though I'm not afraid of the heights.
Yeah, well, it's just your body has those two feelings. One, there's the normal feeling of, if I fall, if I sneeze or something, I'll just die.
Yeah.
And then secondary to that, there's that somewhat smaller thought of, what if I just jump off for some reason?
There's also that sort of inner ear imbalance thing where it's like, try sitting on something that's like maybe 6 feet tall, like the edge of a high deck, and then, lean back a little bit, and your body goes, whoa, 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 whoa. It's like, no. And, looking over something like that, your body goes inside. It goes, whoa, 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 whoa.
So these dudes start doing pull-ups from this thing.
All right.
Yeah.
If I was, strong enough to do pull-ups, I would have a little bit more confidence doing that.
It's not. I don't think it's a matter of that, because just watching this video made me very uncomfortable. But at the same time, it's fascinating, and I recommend you watch it.
Yeah, maybe they had hidden safety cables. Or they photoshopped them out.
I didn't see anything. Regardless, that's my thing of the day.
I'll believe it. All right. So, a lot of I'm sort of anti-collecting, if you didn't hear that before in the show at any point in time.
Oh, but what about my pile of silver 1930s Liberty heads?
How about your Pogs?
I don't have any Pogs. Actually,
how about your Magic cards?
I have all my Magic cards. A 1932 silver Liberty head is one hell of a slammer, let me tell you.
Okay. So when it comes to buying things, I generally consider, what is this useful for, right? And if something is actually, useful for looking at, it's sort of like an important artifact or something, it should be in like a museum and not something you should collect in your house,
Oh, Scott, I see you look up to, what's this, Indiana Jones, I think? Wasn't that always his shtick? This belongs in a museum. And the Nazis said, no, it belongs, I don't know, we're Nazis.
Okay. I don't know where that came from.
That was always his thing. He's like, this belongs in a museum.
Okay, anyway.
That was like the whole point of the Indiana Jones movies.
I thought the whole point was Indiana Jones doesn't actually do anything. Seriously, Raiders of the Lost Ark, if he wasn't there, everything would have gone and the good guys still would have won.
It's not like the Nazis wouldn't have melted.
Yeah, I mean, the Nazis got the Ark. He lost. He never saved anyone. He attempted daring rescues and failed at every possible turn. And in the end, the Nazis ruined themselves. If Indiana Jones just stayed home in bed, everything would have turned out great in the end. It didn't matter.
But he wanted to put everything in a museum.
He did. Okay, so anyway, some guy is selling something on eBay. And looking at the pictures, I believe that it is 100% authentic. It is the SNES game, perhaps the most popular SNES game, Chrono Trigger, sealed from the factory, still with the shrink wrap, still in the original box. The instruction manual's in there. It's straight, like, from the shelf of a toy store, stored safely for many years. Here it is, right? Okay, sells it on eBay. And it fetches $1,217.
That's probably about right, considering the level of fandom for that game.
I know, but you really think about it. Wow, this just what kind of person do you either have to be stupidly rich and just want to piss away money, right?
Well, the thing is, to play devil's advocate, if I were stupidly rich and I were really into something, like let's say, I don't know, the original gold Zelda NES, unopened in the box, also signed by, I don't know, everyone who worked at Nintendo back then.
That's not worth anything to me.
That's worth a couple $100 bucks.
What are you going to do with it?
I'm going to put it in a display case.
All right, then what?
And then people can look at it. I'll have a little museum. I'll put it in the library.
Why?
Because I like to look at things.
But why is that worth $200? For $200, think about what else you can get for $200.
If I'm that rich,
things that would actually do something.
If I'm that rich, it doesn't matter.
No, it does. Okay, anyway. So yeah, that's just, I really think, what's the person going to do with this? For $1,200,
they're going to put it on display and go, wow, check this out. This is pretty cool.
You could buy like a fucking computer. You could buy like a wicked TV.
You could, that's not that much money. You couldn't buy a great TV.
No, you could buy a lot of opened Chrono Trigger cartridges and play them. You'd actually play the game.
But what if you already have all those things and you have money and you're a fan of the game?
You're wasting your money and you're a moron.
People are allowed to collect things.
They're allowed to. It doesn't make them not morons.
I don't find any problem with it, frankly.
I find a big problem with it. People are stupid wasting their money on useless shit. But anyway, yeah. You should only spend money on things that do something. Any other expenditure of money is stupid.
Didn't you have some posters on your wall in college?
They do something.
What do?
They cover up the ugly ass wall.
You mean the beige wall?
Yeah, and you know what? Those
all
posters,
they are is something to look at.
Yeah, you know what? They're free to pretty free.
No,
they're not $1,200. You get $1,200 posters over there?
They weren't free. You could have bought a stick of gum for that.
Oh.
Yeah. So why didn't you buy something useful instead of some stupid poster?
Poster's useful.
Okay.
Cover up my prison break.
Or to cover up that hole in the wall in Colony.
Yes.
Until the hole became larger than the poster.
Then
they had
useful.
a problem.
What use could this have besides playing it? And if your use is playing it, why did you spend $1,200?
Well, I think the answer is that Indiana Jones needs to steal it and put it in a museum. And obviously, the person who bought it is in fact a Nazi.
This just shows you how crazy people are.
So, Advance Wars.
Well, Advance Wars Days of Ruin specifically.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about the whole Advance Wars franchise, even though I could talk forever about the Advance Wars franchise.
Well, this also goes back to the
Desert Commander.
The Famicom Wars. Desert Commander, I think, is actually a similar game, but is not actually Famicom Wars.
Regardless, the game is pretty much identical.
Yeah, it's a pretty close game.
And there was also a similar game for the SNES.
Plus, we did a show in 060725. We talked about Advance Wars series. We just, now there's a new Advance Wars. It's one of our favorite series of games. So we just got to talk about the new game and not the old game.
Yep. Now, we've talked about this before, but briefly, if you're wondering where we're coming from, we're kind of good at this game. And by this game, I mean every Advance Wars game we've ever played.
Yeah, I mean, so far there have been 2 GBA games and a DS game, and this is the second DS game, right? And the first 3 DS games were all sort of the first 3 games so far in the US were all sort of similar. It was happy times, happy, cool characters.
It was pretty much, yay, war. War is great. War is fun, and war really was fun in the Advance Wars world.
Everything was green and happy and colorful, and all the most of the game also was different in that it was very puzzly as opposed to tacticsy. I mean, there was tactics action going on, especially in multiplayer, but most of the single player was puzzly. Like, how do I do this exact thing here that they need me to do? And in the right number of turns, move the things to the exact right spaces, sort of, like a puzzle. I don't know.
Yep. I mean, pretty much. The game was limited in scope, but it was fun, and the characters were very memorable, and they were all around solid games.
Oh, the other thing about those games is that the characters, had all these crazy powers, right? They kept adding more and more to that as in the first game they had normal powers, and the second game they had a little more powers, and the third game even more powers, right? And they kept, the game really came down to a lot of rock, paper, scissors because the character powers were very strong. Like, if you chose grit, you had freaking long range that no one else had. So you were the fucking, that was a huge, crazy advantage that really changed the game. And there was a lot of rock, paper, scissors action, and the powers meant a lot. And, you know, the powers actually often meant more than, you know, how you played the game so much. It was a lot like the Dune board game where it's asymmetric, everyone has a different power, and they lean on that power with all their might.
Now, there's actually a lot more to say about that, but I guess we should just talk about what exactly is different about Advance Wars Days of Ruin. Aside from the fact that in terms of story and plot and atmosphere and mood and everything, Advance Wars Days of Ruin is hardcore.
They took away all the greenness and the happiness, and now it is the gritty, hardcore. This is a serious post-apocalyptic war going on here. It's fucked up shit. There's scary shit going on. There's everyone's serious, no one's silly. Well,
except for Dr. Hibbert.
Sometimes people are silly, but
well, just Dr. Hibbert.
Dr. Hibbert, but also if you go and you in any mission, you can say, you know, like, give me the strategy for this mission, and sometimes there'll be silly stuff going on.
You know,
there.
I never went in there for the whole game until I got to the last mission. After I died 3 times,
I went in there
row.
a few times, and I sort of wish I went in there every time. Not
you can go back and play any mission. And then
I know,
go in.
not to get the strategy, but just to see the funny shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the theme visually and stylistically, the game is dead fucking serious as opposed to the previous Advance Wars, which is the exact fucking opposite.
And it hits you right at the beginning. I mean, you turn on the game the first time, and you basically watch this. Oh, one, the music's fantastic, but the music really sets the mood.
Music's good. I actually.
Well, no, not the music during the game is just, you know, standard video game. It's
yeah,
not
I like
great.
the old Advance Wars in the game music much better.
Yeah, but the opening song that plays over the opening video
That's a pretty good
is
song.
fantastic.
That's a pretty good song right there.
I mean, it really it sounds good. It's a good song, and it really kind of it hits you right over the way. It's pretty much meteors destroyed the world, everybody's dead,
Yeah.
have fun.
And even though I like the older Advance Wars during the game music better, the sound quality of all the music in this game is fantastic. Like it's amazing that it's coming out of that DS. You're like, whoa, that's coming out of DS? Shit.
Yeah, I was playing it with my insertion headphones, and damn.
Yeah.
But in terms of game differences, I think the biggest thing is that CO powers don't work at all like they used to, and this pretty much completely changed the game. This is probably the single biggest change in the game.
Yeah, instead of the CO just first of all, in the old game, COs had a power that was on all the time, then they had a little power, and then they had a big power, and then in the first DS one, they even had a combo power. You used 2 COs at once. It was
And
ludicrous.
pretty much, you charge that up, but nominally by doing damage to your opponent, but more importantly by taking damage from your opponent.
Yeah, so you would try to, whoever dealt and took the most damage would build up the power, and that power, if you used it properly and strategically, you just destroy the other person, and then they would use it right back, and whoa,
And
right?
the problem there was basically that you had to really play this metagame of damaging the opponent, but not in a realistic war way, but in a kind of puzzle game way, because if you damaged them too much but not to great effect, you just charged up their power and you got wrecked. You couldn't just, well, his missiles are too close, I'm going to send a battle copter over there to take it out, because instead it's, if I do that, then I'll charge up his power, I gotta wait.
Yeah. Now they still have the CO power, but the way it works is, first of all, you have to get a vehicle to your headquarters, right? And you tell a CO to go in the vehicle.
What? No, you do it from any factory.
Oh, any factory also, right? And then...
And I don't think you can do it from the headquarters.
Yeah, I've done it from the headquarters.
Really?
Yes.
And honestly, I never used my powers or my people.
Yeah, I don't use them that much either. I used them a couple times. You put them in, and then the vehicle has a radius around it that you can kind of see, and the radius, any vehicle in that radius gets sort of like any unit in that radius gets like a bonus to it, you know?
Depending on your power. I mean, one
Depending on
guy's
your
power
CO,
is
yeah.
all of your ground direct attack units get more attack, or all of your air units get more mobility, stuff like that.
Yeah, so you sort of keep the CO on the field, and anything near the CO that is affected gets helped out, and you can sort of create this zone of power on the map, and that could be strategically helpful. It's pretty strong, but it's not like I get 2 turns, or I do 10 damage to all your guys.
Or my battleships shoot everything.
Or, yeah, my battleships get a range of the entire map, and they rain holy death. Yeah.
Well, Calder's power is kind of unfair, but that's obvious.
Or
He's a
I
boss.
buy everything at half price that's turning it double money.
And can build from any city I own.
Oh, God. That's right.
Yeah, that's Hachi for you.
Yeah.
But beyond that, also, you have a power you can activate. And the way you charge it up is by doing damage with vehicles within your CO's zone of power.
Yep.
And if your CO's unit dies, you don't lose or anything, but all the power you've built up, gone.
And the CO, you got to put him in a new vehicle if you want to.
And you have to pay money, so they've really toned that down. And coupled with that, they've added units to the game and fundamentally changed the way a lot of units play. And all the effect of all this is that this is not a puzzle game nearly so much as any other Advance
There are
Wars.
some puzzle missions in there, in the war room, in the team missions. There's a few puzzles to play, but it is not a puzzle game anymore at all. It is definitely now a war game.
It's not like Advance Wars DS. Destroy the battleships in 9 days.
I hated that one the most. That was the worst mission in any Advance Wars ever.
I beat it with an S on my second try. So
I know,
what your
I'm
problem
just saying
was.
it was a bad mission. I didn't like it. It was not fun.
I enjoyed it. But
I did not enjoy it.
I guess partly because there was missions like that forced you to become the master of the puzzles or decide that it wasn't worth it to become the master of the puzzles.
Pretty much. Yeah.
But the other things they've added, and we'll go over them briefly. One, the Navy. In the early Advance Wars games, naval units were useless unless it was a single-player mission that made you use naval units.
Well, so the landers could be useful depending on the map, right? And the battleships were useful with their range and
Kinda.
holy raining death, right? But they were very expensive and very hard to use, right? But the submarines and the destroyers and those sorts of things, not really all that useful.
Well, it was more that things ran out of gas and weren't that useful and were really expensive, and naval on naval combat as a result was incredibly uninteresting and stupid.
Yeah, it's like if you built destroyers and submarines and things, it really didn't help you unless the other guy also built them and you were just going to fight them against each other. Only battleships could really help you to win the actual game.
And even then, they were so crippled and they couldn't easily refuel or
the
anything.
only purpose of the submarines and destroyers was sort of like to fight against battleships and also prevent people from fighting against your battleships. And you're better off just buying more battleships than buying destroyers and submarines.
Now, Advance Wars DS went a long way to make that better.
They had the aircraft carriers.
Yeah, and even though it wasn't the greatest unit, now that I see the light in the new game, but also they added the Black Boat, which is probably the most important unit. It was like
Black Boat was okay.
It was this cheap little, naval unit that could hold a troop in it and could repair and reload and refuel other naval units.
It was like the APC of the sea.
It actually, there's no APCs. The APCs on the land, Black Boat's in the sea. But it allowed you to have a navy that could go out into the water and be a navy, and you could have naval battles. But
and you could actually refill your battleships when they ran out of bullets.
But even then, it was not great. The new game, one, battleships can move and shoot in the same turn, turning them from a moderately useful unit to fucking death.
That is insane. You realize no other ranged attack unit in the game can move and shoot in the same turn,
Except
right?
your mom.
Except you're right. So the fact that it also is the most damaging ranged unit, the most long-ranged range unit, and can move and shoot at the same time. A battleship is, holy shit, that is fucking dangerous. And if you have a bunch of them, you can decimate your opponent. Thus, the rest of the Navy that fights against battleships becomes very useful.
Plus,
everyone who has a Navy is going to be building battleships really quickly.
Plus, you can build temporary ports on beaches to refill stuff, which is just like awesome. I love that mechanic.
A big problem in the other game is you could only really have, you could only refill on cities, right? All ground units could refuel and re-ammo in cities. But if you wanted to refuel and you weren't, if you were in the water, what could you do? You had to get a black boat, right?
Or you could go over to the land and go next to an APC, but that was
you could have an APC drive up next to your boat, which means you have to bring your boat next to the land, or bring your boat all the way back to your Navy factory at the beginning, the other side of the map. Now you can build temporary naval bases and drive your boats into them, and it is super helpful on many, many maps.
And the gunboat the gunboat combined with the way cruisers work.
Yeah, the
now.
black boat is gone, but we have the gunboat instead.
Yep, I love that little one shot. I'll just build a whole bunch of them and send them out swift boating people.
Yeah, the gunboat is high quality. It only gets one shot, but it's a fucking powerful shot, and you can use it on other boats. So if someone else rolls their battleships up to you, you can build this cheap-ass gunboat, roll out there, do one shot on it, and now it's got to retreat or it's in big trouble.
And the aircraft carrier works a little differently. Instead of basically being a super powerful missile unit that sits in the ocean and lets you hide bombers, it lets you make seaplanes. We'll get to all the different air units because they did the same thing to the Air Force that they did to the Navy in this game.
Oh, yeah.
But basically, naval combat and naval options are viable, interesting, and important now. And that alone would have been enough to make this the best freaking game ever. At least in terms of this kind of game.
Yeah, but not only that, but they changed the ground and the air. You want to talk about the ground or the air first?
Let's talk about the air first.
All right, so the air, right? You used to have the fighter, which is the fighter does nothing but give you air superiority. If you have fighters in the air, then basically the other guy can't fuck with you with air units because your fighters are just so dangerous. But that's all they still do, and that's all they ever needed to do because they were always badass. But now they have added, in addition to the fighters, right?
Well, and the bombers.
And the bombers, right? You had fighters and bombers and helicopters, and that was it.
Yeah, battlecopters were a generally useful unit. You know.
Yeah, battlecopters were sort of like the anti-ground cheap air unit, right? It was an air unit, so it was pretty hard for you to get it destroyed unless they had anti-air, and it could mess tanks up. Bombers could really fuck things up, but you had to sort of like refuel them and supply them, and they were a little trickier than the copters, but much more dangerous. And that was it. That was it for the air. Now, got the seaplane.
And the Duster.
Oh, the Duster.
The Duster is like the battlecopter equivalent of a plane.
Yeah, it's basically, I mean, think about it. The game had 2 planes and 1 helicopter. Now there's 4 planes and 1 helicopter. Well, there was always the transport copter that lets you carry infantry around, but that's no different than it ever was. But yeah, the Duster is really cool because it has sort of like the range of a fighter, right? But a fighter which can only attack air units, a Duster can attack anything. It can swoop down there with his little machine guns and shoot ground units. It can shoot boats, I think. It can shoot anything pretty much, but it flies. And that is super freaking useful. Like, if a guy, you know, I always use it, like, to get those already damaged units. Like, that guy over there has 3 health. Duster, got him.
Yep, or the tanks are coming, and I don't have my anti-tanks in place yet to hold the bridge. Duster's gonna go sit on the bridge.
Yeah, you can use the Duster because it has such the range of a fighter. You can use it to go harass their infantry trying to capture cities. You can use it to clean up almost dead units. You can use it to shoot at their helicopters before you build anti-air. It's not particularly powerful, but it's incredibly versatile, and building a few early on will help you out a lot.
Now, the seaplane, badass, low ammo. It's just a super awesome kind of ground attack, air attack, like all-around great thing. But the trick is, now the problem with all the other advanced wars, they had the aircraft carrier. Yay. Using it for anything in any kind of versus situation was actually not that good of an idea because in the time it took you to get the money to build one,
then buy planes and put the planes on the aircraft
and then
carrier.
send it out and then bring the planes out, that didn't work. You were much better off just building neotanks upon neotanks.
Yeah, I mean, you had to buy an aircraft carrier, buy a plane, put the plane on the aircraft carrier, move the aircraft carrier, get the plane off the aircraft carrier, now move the plane. It was like,
So now, aircraft carriers are basically seaplane factories. So you drive it out, you fly it out there, drive it out there.
You sail it out there.
And then you can just build seaplanes on it. And
it makes planes in the boat. They have a plane factory in the boat.
And even better, when you launch a seaplane, you don't just say, all right, I'm going to put it next to my thing and next round I'm going to move it. It comes out, attacks immediately.
Yep. So if they have, any unit near your aircraft carrier, you can just send the plane out, shoot. Oh, that's so good.
Yep, for land and sea. I mean, battleships coming, well, aircraft carrier just starts sending ships out to intercept that fucker.
If you have a lot of money, aircraft carriers, I think, are the best way. If you have a lot of money on a naval map, I think an aircraft carrier loaded with seaplanes or 2 is the best way you could spend your money, because just having that there with the range of the seaplanes, because the boat can move and then launch a plane, that is so ridiculously far across the map that you can do heavy, heavy damage. And if you have multiple planes, goddamn.
Now, ground units, basically, I want to talk about 2 things, because these 2 things, bikes and anti-tanks.
Oh my god, okay.
War tanks, whatever.
War tanks are sort of the same as the mega tank, but a little weaker. And they got rid of the Neo tank, which is upsetting, but the Neo tank was overpowered.
We'll talk about the anti-tank first, because I think the bike is probably the most revolutionary unit.
It is. The anti-tank, though, is incredibly revolutionary because, first of all, every long range unit every artillery unit in the game, something that shoots something that's not next to it, right? You couldn't shoot something direct, like an artillery. It had a minimum range of 2, right? It did that. You couldn't shoot something directly next to an artillery with that artillery. It doesn't work. The anti-tank can shoot something directly next to it. Also, every ranged attack unit in the game, such as the battleship and such, right? If something attacks it directly, let's say I roll my tank right up next to your rocket, right, which is a ranged unit, and I shoot it. Your rocket doesn't shoot back at my tank. It
goes, ah, shit.
It goes, ah, shit. If a guy's standing at the howitzer and you come up and with a tank, he really can't shoot you with the howitzer. You're right in front of him.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that, right? And it makes sense. The anti-tank, not only does it is a short range, but it's powerful against tanks at least.
Yeah, basically what it adds to the game is another tactical option of it wasn't easy without doing puzzle game bullshit to kind of move into an area, secure it, and then hold it while reinforcements come, or you rebuild your supply line or anything like that.
When in the older games, you would build a bunch of tanks, march in and take an area from the opponent. But in doing so, the guys that were left in that area were heavily weakened. And since you're moving towards the opponent generally, right? Those weakened guys are much closer to your opponent than you are. And it's going to take you some time to get new units out there to refresh. And it becomes, you pretty much always had to attack, retreat, to keep your guys from just getting hosed. And the only way to really move ahead and gain territory in the game was either if it was a map that was built with factories right up on the line there.
Or you just had to play the puzzle game.
Now,
the anti-tank, pretty much, it's a defensive area denial unit. You put it in a city. You take an area.
You don't attack with it. It doesn't work like that.
You take an area, you put it in a city. It will now allow you to hold not just like a perimeter defense, but defensive depth. It'll let you hold that area. And that alone adds such...
It's not an unbreakable hold, but it is a strong hold. You move your tanks in, you blow some guys up, you roll an anti-tank in there. Now, even if they come and get on you... That anti-tank is pretty rough to destroy unless they have just the right units.
It adds so much to the game that But equally important, if not more so, is the bike. It's just a normal infantry unit that moves real far. Now you might think, is it more powerful? No. Does it do anything special? No. In fact, it can't even go places normal infantry can go because it's got wheels. Can't go in a mountain.
Nope.
Can't go in any sort of troop transport.
And it's more expensive than regular infantry too.
Costs as much as a mech.
Yep.
So what it allows is what mechanized infantry allowed in the real world. Basically, in the old Advance Wars games, you could roll tanks over and fight with people and whatever, but the game was pretty much a game of play the puzzle, destroy the other person's units, eventually destroy all their stuff and get to their base. Or play the puzzle of, you have the one APC with one mech in it, and you get over there, and you're tricky, and you capture his HQ. But there was no sort of capture a territory, fortify it, and then continue.
Yeah, because what happened was you were very limited by the speed of the infantry, and the APCs and the transport copters were very powerful because, if there's a map, right, a big map where there's a lot of space and a lot of neutral cities, right, and you want to fight to capture those neutral cities and neutral factories even more, because that's the difference between winning and losing right there. You had to build APCs and transport copters, and your infantry could only move so far. So it was a game of, I have to move these guys really far. And you had these tanks rolling up and doing damage, and you had to get these infantry to catch up with them. And
now, that's actually why I pretty much always won when we played big old multiplayer Advance Wars in the old games, is because the game, the fun way to play the game and the interesting way to play the game is not the way to win. Because in the old games, the way to win, I pretty much built twice as many infantry as anyone else who played.
Yep.
And I would advance slowly, and you'd have this supply line of infantry marching forward in every direction I'm advancing all the time.
Because you can't capture anything without infantry. Even if you have 1,000,000 tanks, you can't capture anything without infantry.
And in order to do that, you have to play the puzzle game of counting spaces, counting APCs, doing the APC moving trick.
How can I get the infantry to move the farthest in the least number of turns and capture the most cities in the least number of turns? And how can I make sure that they're over there when my tanks get there?
It was much like my strategy in Team Fortress Classic or Mega Team Fortress or Weapons Factory. do the thing that's not fun, but will almost always win you the game because no one else is going to be boring enough or insane enough to do it.
Yep. But now you have these bikes that can move really far, significantly far. And
you can just have infantry interspersed with your tanks, and you can attack and then hold an area.
Yes, you can have tanks roll out, go boom, 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 boom. The bikes move right in immediately as soon as you blow the other guy up and take his cities, and then your anti-tanks roll on top of those cities, and you got him.
Now, the net result of all these changes is basically that Advance Wars 2 on the DS, Days of Ruin,
My name varies by nation.
Is pretty much the best tactical strategy war game I've played on a video game system that is turn-based in a long time.
Indeed.
This game is so fantastic, and I cannot stress enough how different it is from the other Advance Wars. Because the other Advance Wars, you'd think like, oh, well, you want to be cool. Like, well, I'm going to send a small hit squad through the fog of war to the south to capture those cities and then harass from the hills while I send my main force around through the north and attack from behind.
That's something else. And
that never worked in the
old
games.
Advance Wars, there were a lot of fog of war puzzles, right? Where it would be, okay, you can't, if you're in the tree, no one can see you unless they stand next to the tree. Right? So you would have to like send guys out, recon guys, to stand next to trees, then shoot the guys in those trees, then move into the tree yourself. And it was a trick of seeing and not being seen. Now they got the flare unit. The flare unit, you just build it, it shoots a flare, and you can see. And oh man, it totally changes up the fog of war dynamic. Fog of war is no longer a puzzle. Fog of war is now actually a fight, but you just need to use these flare units to sort of back it up.
So that's it. The game is now an actual tactical strategic game. You can make strategies. You can implement them. You can send battlecopters on a kamikaze mission to take out those anti-airs in advance of the main bomber squadron getting there. Doing something like that in the original Advance Wars games was needlessly complicated, usually useless, and not the optimal way to win. But in this game, that's everything.
Yep.
Supply lines matter.
The game doesn't look that different on the surface, to the average player, but in reality, the game is super different.
Also, I would like to point out that the AI is not stupid now.
Yeah, the AI used to not, it wasn't smart before, but it was sort of programmed to do annoying things on different maps because they were puzzle-based maps, so it was like, aha, the AI is going to do this, and
But also, like in Advance Wars 1, you could on the GBA, you could trick the AI because it would always attack an APC.
Yeah, you send an APC out, they would attack the APC with their most powerful units, then you counterattack their most powerful units with your untouched most powerful units.
Now, the AI is still stupid, basically, but it's so much smarter than it used to be. You can't really trick it unless you really pay attention. Like, I figured out a couple of things you can use to kind of trick the AI. Well, I'll give you all a hint. The AI is extremely risk-averse with expensive units, but it is extremely kamikaze with cheap units. Case in point, it'll send a battlecopter right next to your anti-aircraft to do 6 damage to your rockets. But they will never, ever, ever risk the bomber.
Nope. Like, for example, they had a fighter once, right? I had 2 fighters. That I had pretty much most of the map covered, right? They would not move. Their fighter would keep running into the corner of the map to hide to where I could not get it so that it would not be destroyed. But as soon as there was a situation in which they could make an attack that would do a significant amount of damage, they rolled in like 3 war tanks, like doom, 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 because they did so much damage with that. Of course, I counterattacked, and that was it. But they wouldn't go into my zone of dangerousness until they had a significant advantage. They wouldn't roll in to do a piddly, twink, twink, twink. They would only roll in to do the heavy hit.
And the AI also, in general, will pull a lot of tricky shit if you're not looking for it. Pretty much anytime you think you've got an opening, if you're not good at these games, or you're new to them, or you're not doing so well, every time you think, oh man, his rocket is totally exposed, odds are it's not. Look, there's probably another rocket covering it, or a medium tank that's just within range of whatever you use to attack it. The AI covers its bases pretty damn well. And in the last mission, pretty much the AI will say, all right, what's the most dangerous unit that's closest to the thing you have to blow up to win the game? Oh, I'm going to send all my fighters over there to kill it, no matter what.
Great. How many fighters do they have? 100.
Let me put it this way. In the last mission, I had like 40 cities and I fought to the last man, and I didn't win.
Wow.
Multiple times.
Wow. I got to get to this mission pretty soon.
The worst thing is, one time, not to spoil, but when you see the mission, you'll know. I'm going to say this. The center laser had 2 hit points left, and it was the only laser left. I could not get so much as an infantry or anything, even within striking distance.
Yeah.
And I died to the last bitter man. I
hardly ever played The Last Bitter Man.
I built my last war tank, and it was immediately surrounded by 2 war tanks and 2 bombers, and I lost.
Wow.
Yeah. But multiplayer is awesome. I'm not going to talk about the Wi-Fi because it's Nintendo. Their Wi-Fi is dick.
The Wi-Fi is useless shit. I basically pretend it doesn't even exist because it's not worth using.
I'll say this. I went and played on the Wi-Fi. It works pretty well. I don't think there'll be many people playing it other than friends, and I could see myself using it to play with like Pete and Alex.
Yeah, if I was if I was pretty bored looking for some action, I would, get a friend on IM or something and, trade the friend code and play online with them. But
yeah, it works really well.
I wouldn't do that too often. I'd have to be pretty bored to do that.
But I played with some strangers, right? And I learned one thing.
They all suck?
Playing against people on the Wi-Fi in Advance Wars, especially if you're one of those nut jobs who just plays these games obsessively, you kind of wreck people to the point that you can almost feel the frustration as every unit they move runs into an ambush and then blows up every round. And every time they send someone out to go try to take a factory, I've already got the factory.
Yeah.
But yeah, this game is one of those must-have games for the DS.
Yeah, if you don't have a DS, I know what's wrong with you. They got new blue and black DSs coming out. Finally, a halfway decent color. I ordered one. It'll be here soon. Then I'll have a fat DS to give to somebody.
Yeah, well, Emily's already got a DS, so who needs a DS that we know?
Oh, my family. I don't know.
Yeah. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.